the first thing that I want to make you guys aware of is the process of how you get access. So we use the RazorGrant system here on campus for submitting proposals to outside sponsors, and we also now use RazorGrant for all IRB protocol submissions. So any IRB human subjects research will go through the RazorGrant system. And so for those of you that are affiliate, to get access to the system, the first thing you have to do is contact Nancy Kellums, and her phone number is 479-575-2792. You have to give her your social security number and a few other pieces of information so that she can get you set up in the University of Arkansas Fayetteville's system, so that I can then give you permissions to access RazorGrant. And after you contact Nancy, if you haven't heard back from me or her in about 5 business days, you need to contact one of us. So once you have your UARK email address, the reason that's so important is you have to have an active UARK email address to be able to sign into the RazorGrant system. So the other thing I would encourage you is, I know many people have multiple emails, and so if you're not going to use your UARK email address as your primary, that is fine, but I would go into your UARK account and actually set a rule so that all your emails from your UARK email will forward to the email that you check. So if you don't check that email regularly or don't have it forward to an email account that you do check, you could be missing information and not be aware of when a protocol is in a certain step or waiting on you. All right, so with that being said, once you receive the email and have access to the RazorGrant site, you would need to go log into RazorGrant. I always like to start by making everyone aware of 2 very important web pages. The first one is the RazorGrant web page, and the shortcut for that is razorgrantinfo.uark.edu. So if you just type that shortcut in your browser and hit enter, it will take you here to the RazorGrant web page. And everything that I'm going to cover today does have help documents out there. So currently, under the RazorGrant IRB protocols, we have a handful of help documents. And the other web page I like to show folks is the actual research compliance web page. So research compliance, the code for that is rscp.uark.edu. Research compliance houses more than just human subjects, but that is what we're going to cover today. So if I click the human subjects link, this web page has lots of useful information about the definition of research, the definition of a human subject, when our full board meets, the types of reviews, how to make the determination of the types of reviews, and you can also log into the RazorGrant system from this site. All right, so if I go back over here to the RazorGrant webpage, I'm ready to log in and start my protocol. So to do that, you're just going to hit the RazorGrant login button, and it will take you here to our UARK central login screen. So this is why you have to have a UARK email address. When you get to this screen, you will use the beginning of your UARK email address as your username, and then whatever password you set up for that. All right. So when you first log in, your screen is probably going to be blank. You're going to see this RazorGrant and you're going to see the word action list. Your action list, this is where things will stay while you're working on them, and they will stay listed here on your action list until you either submit them or delete them. So think about this as kind of like your work in progress, your working queue, okay? So once you complete your protocol and submit it, it will disappear from this screen. And that's okay, it's supposed to do that because it will move on to the next step. So when you're ready to create your protocol, you're gonna hover over the main menu and you're gonna hover over IRB. And when you get this flyout menu to the right, you have the word IRB protocol. If you click that, that is actually pulling up a search screen. So what you actually want to do to start your protocol is hit the plus sign. And we do have help text that says, you know, if I hover over it, it does say create protocol. So we're just going to go in and we're going to act like we're creating a IRB protocol and go through all the steps. So what you see on the left side of your screen, these are all the tabs. And within each tab, there are multiple sections that may or may not need to be completed. And so what we're going to do is go through each of the sections and each of the tabs and see what information is required. So the first thing is when I create this new protocol, if you notice it does not have a protocol number yet. I will not have a protocol number until I complete these required fields for saving, and then when I hit the save button, it will generate the protocol number. So to start, in the description field, you need to put a short description. Now, this is not the detailed description of your entire IRB protocol and what you're doing. This is just a short, very short title, short name. So this could be my fall GA protocol or something meaningful to you. Whatever you put in this description field, that is what it will list on your action list. So for example, if you happen to have a situation where you are working on multiple protocols at once, whatever you put here in this description field, that is what displays here. It will list IRB protocol title, and this title is what was in the description. The next two fields are optional. You don't have to put anything in them. In the required fields for saving section, you will need to list your protocol type. So the choices are exempt, expedited, full board, or other. And here in a second, I'll show you a way that you can jump ahead to look at the checklists to help determine if your protocol is exempt or expedited. You'll also need to enter a title, and this is your official project title. Okay. And then you'll need to list the PI. So in most scenarios, I assume that since you're the one entering it, you will probably be the PI as well. There could be a situation where you're the co-I, but most of the time the person entering the protocol is the PI. So if you notice in this field, you cannot click. This system is very consistent. Anytime you see a magnifying glass, you will have to click it because that is your search feature. So we're going to click the magnifying glass. And again, this pulls up a search screen. You do not need to fill in all the fields. This is just giving you multiple options and multiple ways to search. So one way that I recommend to a lot of folks is using the email address because that is very constant. However, I want to point out if you are an affiliate, the email address that you are used to using may not be the email address that is set up in this system. So for example, if you are an extension employee, your email address likely ends in UAEX, and you're not going to find the UAEX email addresses in here. So for an affiliate, this might not be as useful. You can also search on name. However, if you do search on name, just remember you need to use asterisks. So for example, if I search on the name Smith, if I do asterisk to Smith, asterisk, and click the search button, it's going to pull back every occurrence of a person who has the name Smith. Well, there are a lot of people with the last name Smith, so I can narrow my search if I put the beginning of their first name, asterisk, ASH, asterisk, and hit search, and then that narrows it down. All right, so that is definitely a good way to search if you don't want to use email address. So I'm going to add myself as the PI. All right, so that's me. Depending on the size of your screen, when you hit search, there are times that you do not see the information below. You may or may not have to scroll past this search button to see your search results. So always keep that in mind. If you hit search and it looks like nothing came up, you might want to scroll down and see if there's options down there that you just can't see. So I'm going to select myself, and to do that, I'm going to click the return value link, and then that will pull my name in, and it will automatically assign me my lead unit. So one of the things I do when I set up your permission, I tie you to a department code in the system. Okay, so now that I have the required fields for saving entered, I'm going to click the Save button. Now that I have filled in the required information and saved it, it has generated my protocol number. If I get interrupted, if I get timed out, if I walk away, this is now saved to my action list, and it will remain on my action list until I either submit it or delete it. So I always recommend that you do these couple of steps first and then click Save. That way this now is available on your action list and you can continue to pull it up and work on it as needed. So one thing that you need to make a decision on this page is your protocol type. So if you're unsure if your protocol is exempt or expedited or full board, one way to help you determine this is you can jump ahead to the Protocol Actions tab, and you can pretend like you're going to submit this. Now just note, you will not be able to click on any of these tabs until you have this required fields for saving information filled in, okay? So we're going to jump ahead and we're going to go to Request an Action, and we're going to pretend like we're going to submit this for review. Even though we're not ready, if I come over here to the right where it says Submission Review Type, one of the options is expedited and the other is exempt, and we also have full board here. So if I select expedited, this is the checklist. Your study, your IRB protocol, has to meet at least one of these criteria for it to be considered an expedited protocol. Same thing with exempt. If I pull up exempt, this lists a different checklist, and your protocol would have to meet at least one of these criteria for it to be considered exempt. If you meet the criteria on one of these checklists, then you choose that as your protocol type. Obviously, if you meet none of the criteria on either the exempt or the expedited, then your only other option would be that this is a full board review. Another great resource for you is the IRB coordinator. Ro Windwalker is her name, and her email address is irb@uark.edu. She can definitely help you with making this determination. And the good news is, even if you go through this process and you select the review type based off the information you have and it's not the correct review type, Ro will either adjust it or work with you to get that changed. So now that we've jumped ahead, let's go back to where we were. We'll go back to the Protocol tab, and let's look at the rest of these sections and see if there's anything else on this tab that we need to fill in. The next section is Status and Dates. This is purely informational. You don't actually fill in information here, but the information in these sections will automatically update as the protocol goes through its process. So at any point in time, you have that information there at your fingertips. The Additional Information tab really won't be used very frequently. The main scenario where this would be used is when you have a situation where your IRB protocol has already been approved by an outside IRB board. Maybe you're working with a faculty up here on our campus, and our IRB board now needs to be aware of it. This is how you would identify that. You would come to the Additional Information and select External IRB. Even if you forget to do this, when you're filling out the questionnaire, one of the questions it asks you is if your protocol required outside approval, and that will prompt you to come put the information here in this section. The Organizations tab is already pre-populated for you, so you don't actually have to put any information in this tab. And then you do need to list the funding source. So when you click funding source, you have two options. You have externally funded, or you have internally/unfunded. A scenario where you would use externally funded as your funding source is when the sponsor is outside the University of Arkansas and you have already entered that proposal into RazorGrant, then you would list it as externally funded, and you would use this magnifying glass to identify the proposal that you have previously submitted into RazorGrant, and you would tie them together. So if you are an affiliate that doesn't put your proposals in RazorGrant, you would probably never use this part of the feature. I'm going to just go ahead and return. All I did was hit the search button, and I'm searching for a proposal for one of our PIs here on campus to just tie it to this funding source to show you. So if that was the case, I can link it that way and click Add, and now my proposal that is already in RazorGrant is now tied to my protocol. If your proposal is not in RazorGrant, then you really don't have any choice other than to choose internally funded/unfunded. So in that situation, even if this was funded from an outside source, this is a free-form field, so you can type whatever you want in that field. So for example, if this was funded by a USDA grant, you could put that in there. The source, you could put NA, or you can put USDA, whatever's applicable to the specific protocol that you're creating. All right, the next section that you do need to fill in is the participant types. Obviously, if you're doing research with human subjects, you do need some participants. That's probably going to help you in your study. And so what you're going to do is you will identify the type of participant. So if you were interviewing or doing a study involving children, you can list children, and however many you anticipate will be participating in your study. And let's say you maybe have a mixture, you also have adults. You could list adults. You can list however many types and counts you need to list. Now, one thing I want to point out, and this comes up frequently with surveys, if you are doing a survey and you're going to send this survey to 600 people, then I highly recommend you go ahead and list 600 as your total participant count, because that would be the maximum number of people that could actually participate in your study. So if you had 601 people that ended up participating, you would have to then go do an amendment to get this number to be 601. If you have less, it's not an issue, but you cannot go over. List the number based on how many respondents you're sending it to, okay? All right, now that I'm at the bottom of the page, I'm going to hit the Save button just so that it saves my progress. It will save automatically when I click a different tab, but just to be safe, it never hurts to save frequently. All right, so I think I've filled in all the information in all the sections for this tab. So now we're going to move on to the next tab, and the next tab is the Personnel tab. Okay, so this is where I'm going to list any people that are part of this project other than myself. So I've listed myself as the PI, but maybe I have other folks working with me on this protocol. And if so, I can add them as project personnel. So to do that, even though you have this person username field, what you think the person's username is may or may not be their username. So I always recommend using the search feature. So I'm going to click the magnifying glass, and let's find a couple folks to add on to this. I'm going to add So I'm going to search by last name, and again, this isn't the full last name, this is just part of it. I'm going to click search, and there's Beverly, and I'm going to pull her in. She's going to be my co-I on this project. So to add her, I'm going to click return value, and it does pull her in. And again, keep in mind, this is just throwing our office's phone number in there because she's an affiliate. This is her UARC email address, and this is the unit that she's in. So under protocol role, I have 4 choices. I can list her as the co-I, the data integrity manager, study personnel, or PI. Keep in mind though, you can only have one principal investigator listed on any protocol. And since I've already listed myself as the PI, I'm going to list her as the co-I. I do have to click the add button. And now it will show her as the co-I, and we will add one more person. You can also search by home unit, and sometimes this is very useful. Maybe you're not quite sure what their name is in the system. So if I just put home unit and click search, currently, as of right now, these are all the folks that are under COEX that have access to the system. This is what their username and their email address is and what their name is in the system. And don't get concerned with the fact that your office location shows Bell 4188. All affiliates and all students automatically get dumped into the system as with an office location of Bell 4188. If you want to change your office location or your phone number, you can definitely do that. If you go to main menu, settings, person extended attributes, those are things that you can change and update yourself. Just keep in mind it's not specifically driving anything, so it's not going to cause an issue if this information is incorrect on the protocol. Okay, so let me select one more person that's going to participate on this protocol with me. I'll just pick Amanda, and I'm going to click Return Value. And I will have her be study personnel on this project. Now I'm going to click Add. And at this point, I now have listed everyone that is part of this protocol project. So it feels like you are done with this screen, but actually at this point, what you should do is click each name, and under Person Details, click the Show button, so you can also choose their affiliation type. If you forget to fill this information in, it's not an issue. Prior to you submitting the protocol, the system will automatically prompt you to go fill in this information. Under affiliation type, my choices are affiliate, faculty, faculty supervisor, non-faculty, or student investigator. So I can pick any protocol role. Any one of these roles can go with any one of these affiliation types. I do like to point out to folks that if the protocol role PI is chosen and the affiliation type is student investigator, that student investigator must list someone as a faculty supervisor. Otherwise, the system will not let them submit the protocol. And that's just a backstop to make sure someone is overseeing this student investigator. All right, so if I pick myself as faculty, and I'm going to come down and do Beverly, person detail, and we'll list her as an affiliate. And then I will click the Save button to make sure it's saving all my changes. And if I forget to fill in Amanda's affiliation type, I'll show you what that error message looks like at the end. All right, so let's move on to the questionnaire. So the good news is there's only one questionnaire because this is an IRB protocol, and it always starts off with these first two questions. The first one being, what is the purpose of this research? And then it wants you to explain. And we do try to put helpful information in the questionnaire, such as see attachment is not a sufficient response. So if you just type in here, see attachment, Ro will kick this back to you because she does need you to summarize the purpose of your research. You have 5,000 characters, which does include spaces, so it's probably roughly a paragraph at most. The next question that it will always ask is, are you collecting data about living individuals? So keep in mind, if you say no here, then this does not require an IRB review. So if you say yes, you are collecting data about living individuals, that will bring you here to the third question. And this third question is the very pivotal question. This question determines which side of the decision tree the questionnaire is going to branch out into. So let me show you. Question 3 is, are you collecting data through intervention or interaction with these individuals? If you say no, the questionnaire goes down one path, and it asks you things such as, do you have access to identifiable private information? If you say no, this does not require IRB review. If you say yes, then you're prompted to describe what data you're collecting, whether or not the data is publicly available, if it's accessible online, and if so, you'll copy-paste the URLs. So really, the only time you would pick no on this question number 3 is when you do have access to identifiable private information. So in any other case, if you do not have access to identifiable private information, then you will say yes on number 3. And I like to point out, even if you are doing a survey that you are taking to a school district and giving the survey to teachers for those teachers to hand it out to their students, so therefore you're not directly speaking with or emailing the students, you are still having a level of interaction with these people because they are filling out your survey and you are then reviewing the results. Okay, so if you say yes, you're collecting data through intervention or interaction, this brings up the much longer list of questions that you need to answer. So this part of the questionnaire will ask you things such as, beyond the basic participant types, do you have a target population? And if you say yes, it'll bring up a question so that you can describe your target population. It's going to ask you how you're recruiting participants. And we do give you information here in the questionnaire that says, please note, all recruitment materials will need to be uploaded in the notes and attachments section. Any question that requires you to add an attachment, the question itself will tell you, please add, whatever the attachment is in the notes and attachments section. It will also ask you questions about describing your procedures, and keep in mind, a procedure is not limited to something medical related. A survey would be considered a procedure. You're going to describe how long the procedures take, how information will be given to people to get their informed consent, and again, consent materials will need to be uploaded. If your collection relies on a scheduled event, such as a convention or a conference that you're going to, you'll note that. You're going to describe how the data will be collected, how the data will be stored, how it will be kept secure. You'll define any risk that is greater than minimal risk, and any direct benefits to the participants. So keep in mind, even if the only benefit is that they are going to gain knowledge, that is still considered a direct benefit that you should list. If your research involves any deception or withholding, you'll flag that. And if it requires any medical clearance from a physician, you will note that. Biological samples, you'll list that. And if you're administering substances other than water to your participants, you'll list that information, including if there's any physical exercise or conditioning involved. The last two questions I kind of referenced earlier. Does the research require review by a non-U of A IRB? So this is where, if you've already received approval from an outside IRB board, you can click yes, and this is where it will give you the instructions on where to go to list that information. If your research requires approval from another institution or agency, such as a school or privately owned business, you will mark yes to this question. So if you're going to be working with a school or a school district and you're going into the classes, or even if you're not going into the classes but you're giving them a survey to be completed, you do need to get permission, obviously, from that school district or that specific school. Or same thing if you're doing that type of survey or observation of people, then you can list that approval from the other agency or institution. So what you would do, you'll mark yes on this question, and then in the notes and attachments section, that's where you'll upload the approval letter from the agency. All right, so once you have the questionnaire completed, you'll click Save. Just make sure all of your information is saved, and then you'll scroll all the way back up to the top, and we'll continue on with the remaining tabs. I also do want to point out, if for whatever reason you ever need to print this questionnaire, you can click this print button and it will automatically print to a PDF. All right, the next tab is the Special Review tab. The only time that you should have to list anything here is when you have a situation where your human subjects protocol also involves an additional special review. So if your human subjects protocol also involves animals, which would be the IACUC, or if it involves radiation safety, toxic substance, foreign travel and collaboration, export control, or biosafety, then you would list that type, you would list the status that it's in, and you would add it to your protocol. What this is going to do is the system will automatically send a notification to the coordinator that handles that type of compliance. If you have nothing other than human subjects related to this project, then you can leave that blank and go on to the next tab. The next tab is permissions, and the top section is purely informational. So right here where it says assigned roles, this is just listing everyone that I have added as personnel on this protocol project. And it's telling me what roles and what permissions they have. So right now, I am the PI, and I'm the one that has created this protocol. So I have aggregator access, which that means equivalent to editor. I can do anything to this. I've listed Beverly as my co-I and Amanda as my study personnel. And right now they can only view this, so they do not have edit access. It also will show you the roles right here. and it will show you their affiliation type down here. If you scroll down to the section that says users, this is where you can adjust people's permissions. So let's say I'm working very closely with Beverly as my co-I, and maybe she also needs to be able to edit or make changes to this protocol. If that's the case, I can click Edit Role, and I can give her aggregator access. Now these roles are a hierarchy, and so if I try to save it with 2 boxes checked, it will not let me. I have to uncheck Viewer, because when you give them aggregator, they automatically inherit Viewer. So if I click Save, now Beverly would have access to edit this protocol. Now she is not going to get an email notification. I would actually have to call or email her and say, hey Beverly, you can go look at protocol 171.007.9963 and add your attachments or make whatever edits you need to make. You can also give someone access to this protocol even if they are not part of the project. So for example, if for some reason you had folks in your office that you want them to have access to this, maybe you want them to be able to view it or edit it, etc., you can search for them and add them to this protocol. And pick what role I want them to have. Maybe I just want this person to be able to view it, and then I can click Add. And now Julie Robinson also has access to view this protocol. So the bottom line is you can set this up however you see fit. Now keep in mind it's only going to apply to each protocol. So if you submit 2 or 3 protocols, this does not carry over to future protocols. I'm going to click Save to save my changes, and now I'm going to scroll back up and we'll go to the next tab. All right, the next tab is the Notes and Attachments, and the Notes section is just that. This is an area where you can add additional notes. And the Attachments tab, this is where all your attachments will be attached. So under attachment type, these are the choices you have. It is from a drop-down menu. And hopefully when you come here to attach some of your materials, seeing the drop-down menu might help you remember what things you need to attach to this protocol. So obviously you're going to need consent materials, and you're probably always going to need your data collection materials. Some of these other ones may or may not apply depending on the type of protocol you're doing. Other approvals, that is what you would choose when you have approval from an outside entity, such as the school district. The attachment type protocol, that is for you to attach your actual full protocols. Let me mention on your consent materials, you do need to make sure those are always uploaded as a PDF. And the reason is once your protocol is approved, they will get watermarked with the IRB number and the approval and the expiration date. And then obviously you also have recruitment materials as another option. So once you have all the material that you need to attach, I'm just going to attach a picture here. You can drag and drop in this system. You just have to be very careful. If you drag and drop, you have to drag and drop right over the button. See how it's highlighted now? If you don't drag and drop right over the button, then it opens it as a full picture on your screen. The drag and drop feature over the button works in most browsers except for Internet Explorer. You also need to flag your attachment type as complete, and then you need to enter a brief description. And there are times where the description is going to match the attachment type, and there are times where it's not going to match. So it could be that you have consent materials for children, and then you may have a second attachment that is consent materials for the adults. It's just going to depend. So once you have all the information, i.e. the attachment type, status is flagged complete, you've actually added the attachment and you have entered the description. If you want to fill in these other fields, you can, but again, there's no asterisk, so they're optional. And then you click the Add button, and now I have successfully added those attachments to my protocol. Now, the nice thing about this is when you get all your attachments, you can filter. So if you just need to look at only your consent material, you can filter on that, and it would show you that. You can also filter by the last update. So that's very helpful when you're renewing a protocol there are times that you want to just look at the most updated consent material or authorization form. So I'm going to save that tab. All right, so the last thing that you'll want to click on is protocol actions. Once you have all the other information filled in, you're ready to submit this, you'll click protocol actions. You'll go request an action, and at this point you have two choices. You can either delete this protocol or you can submit it for review. Now, before you actually submit it for review, I highly recommend that you use this data validation. Even if you don't click on data validation and turn this on, the system is automatically going to run these validations before it lets you submit. Therefore, it's always a good idea to just go ahead and do it and get any errors out of the way. So under data validation, I'm going to click turn on. And the system is now showing me that I have two areas where there are errors. So these are fields that are required that I have not put information into. And if you notice, nothing pops up about attachments. So the system is not going to remind you to add your attachments because every protocol is slightly different. Some protocols may require attachments that other protocols don't require. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Don't forget to add your attachments. All right, so I have two different errors here, and I can click show, and it will give me a descriptor of what this error is. So this one told me human subjects interview, research interview 1. And then if I hit show, it tells me the mandatory questionnaire is not complete. My second error is personnel 1, and this is actually a count, so I have one error in personnel. If I click show, again, it will tell me the affiliation type for Amanda McWhirt is required. So I can click the fix button, and it will take me directly to that section, to the field that I need to fix. It will give me this little red circle with a minus inside of it, and that's where it's trying to tell me, hey, you need to go fix this, put some information in there. So I can pick her affiliation type, and then click the save button. And now it will take me right back to this screen, and I can continue working on my errors. All right, so now that I have all my errors cleaned up, if I'm ready to submit, then I can come up here to submit for review, hit the show button. This is where I'm going to pick my submission type, and the system recognizes that this is just the initial protocol application, so you only have one choice. If this protocol already existed in the system and you were wanting to amend or renew it, you would have different options down here to amend or renew it. And thus you would have the corresponding submission types. You're also going to select the submission review type, and again, this is where those checklists are that we already looked at. So at this point, if you haven't already filled in this information, then you would fill it in. So again, if your protocol meets at least one of the items on the expedited checklist, then it can be submitted as expedited. Same thing with exempt. And if it doesn't meet any of the criteria for exempt or expedited, then it is going to most likely be full board. Okay, I'm not actually going to submit this, but if I did submit it, it would then disappear from my action list. So a couple other things that I want to show you on this protocol actions tab. You do have a route log. This is going to show you the path that your protocol is going to take once you submit it. So right now I'm the PI, and it is in my action list for me to complete. If I want to see the future, I can click Future Action Requests. And once I submit this, it is then going to route to Beverly because she is a COI. Anyone you list as a COI on this protocol, they have to approve it before it moves on to the next step. Same thing with faculty supervisor. If someone is a student PI and they try to submit this protocol, they have to have a faculty supervisor listed, and that faculty supervisor also has to approve. Once all PIs and COIs or faculty supervisors approve the protocol, then it will go on to the IRB administrator, Roe Windwalker. So we do have a very short workflow in this system for protocols. You also have a summary and history section. So this history section, it will basically note all the major touches to this protocol, and all your correspondences will be accessible here. So for example, once your protocol is approved, you will get an email notification and a link where you can view your approval letter. If you happen to lose that letter or need to pull it up and send it to someone, you would be able to find it here under the History tab. The description would be something along the lines of approval, and then it would say correspondence, and you can click it and it would generate the approval letter in a PDF format with the same dates that you originally received. All right, so let's pretend like I just submitted it, and then it kicks me back to my action list after I submit it, and it's gone. So at that point, if you need to find your protocol to determine where it is in the process, maybe it's been a couple of days and you want to know what's going on, to locate your protocol, you would hover over Main Menu, IRB, and all of you will have an option right in here that says All My Protocols. Okay, I don't have that option because I have different access in the system, but you will have that option. You can click that link and it will pull up all the protocols that you are listed on. Another way to get to it is if you click IRB protocol, that pulls up this search screen. And here again, I'm just going to pick somebody that I know has protocols out in the system. Under the investigator field, even if you're the co-I, you can list your last name with asterisks. Click search, and this will pull up a list of all of the protocols you're listed on in the status. So right now I'm searching for Elbin, and these are all the protocols that this person is listed on. It does give me the status, so he has several that are active, open to enrollment. He has some that have amendments in progress, and then he also has some pending in progress. So this is a quick way to just kind of see the status of your protocol, and then if you want to view it, you can view it, or you can click edit, and even if you're not going to edit it, you can still click edit to open it. This also would list any approval dates, any expiration dates, and if it's been renewed, it will show you the last approval date. It will show you the lead unit. So that is, again, there's multiple ways to find your protocols, but those are probably the two easiest ways. Now keep in mind the system will send you automated notifications. So once the IRB coordinator receives your protocol, you will get an automated notification saying that it's been submitted to her, she's received it. And once your protocol is approved, you will also get an automated email notification that says your protocol is approved. The subject line usually lists protocol, the number, and then it will either say expedited for an expedited protocol, exempt for an exempt one, or approval for the full board. And that notification will have a link that says view correspondence, and if you click that link, it will open your approval letter for you. All right, so that is a very quick overview of the system and how to enter all of the required information to actually be able to submit your protocol.